So the way that appears is that he was there for training with the bomb squad. I mean, he said, I was there for training with the bomb squad just a few hours before, and that he was in cop mode as part of that training in Times Square. And then you have the almost instant response of the bomb squad. And that's not saying the bomb squad was in on this. Government intelligence agencies will have other agencies involved in drills so that when the NSA picks up chatter about an attack, it's missed because this fog of the drill, this confusion has been injected. And we know this is the case on 9/11, 7/7, and so many other cases. Separately, and we'll play this clip again coming up in a few minutes, we have Mayor Bloomberg yesterday on the nightly news, on CBS News nationally, saying that, if he had to bet, he would guess it was some anti-government health care individual that had done this. And we have a whole bunch of left-wing blogs trying to blame the American people. And Kurt Nimmo wrote an article about that. So we know that anytime there's an event or a failed event, the first group they're going to try to blame is the American people. And we have the director of the FBI on record saying the number one focus is now the American people, not even al-Qaeda. So they set up this whole police state in the name of fighting al-Qaeda, and then they're now swinging it around to use it on the American people. Let's go to Mike Rivero and get his take on this situation. Mike, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Give us your take on the whole situation unfolding.
Well, you know, you pointed out a very cogent observation there with Michael Bloomberg's comments here, because looking at what I like to call the sideshow that is going on surrounding this event, everybody in politics and the media seems to be viewing every news event, no matter what it is, not as another situation of finding out what the facts and truth are, but as merely another opportunity to propagandize whatever their agenda happens to be. When this fizzled bombing first came out, we had Site Intelligence Group saying they had a video from al-Qaeda claiming responsibility. Then it was being blamed on Muslim anger against South Park for one of their programs because this bomb was supposedly near the offices of Viacom. Then you had Bloomberg saying it was probably somebody that was opposed to health care. Other groups are saying it was probably the Tea Party activists. On and on and on. You see everybody trying to grab onto this news event and spin it to support whatever their particular agenda happens to be. Now we're hearing basically that this perpetrator they've arrested for it apparently lost his home to foreclosure about a month ago. And was basically, you know, it would make sense he was selling his van and going back home to, you know, basically try and get his life back together. So it's kind of interesting. We saw this videotape of the guy taking off his sweater, and he was the white guy that was supposed to be the suspect. And it just seems like we have had this continuous parade of possible suspicions, and I'm not sure where the truth lies right now because the waters are so muddied, but it's just an interesting study in propaganda to see how this incident has been exploited by so many different people to push so many different agendas.
Well, exactly, and it's like a catch-all, just, you know, this vague, nebulous event, and now no one knows who's behind it, so we'll just blame everyone. But the good guys are the authorities. They're the officials. You just heard that video clip, Mike. What do you make of the sheriff's deputy being interviewed by the news and saying, yeah, we were there working with the bomb squad at Times Square a few hours before, so I was there in cop mode. I don't think you can take anything away from that, but that they were doing a drill. We're putting calls in right now to New York, to the county, to different agencies, and that should be public information. Were they running a drill in Times Square preceding this?
Well, I'd want to be very, very careful about this because listening to the clip just then, it sounded like he was in New York to work with the bomb squad. I didn't get that he said that the training with the bomb squad was in Times Square. It may have been or not. It seems a little vague to me, and I'd like to nail that down before we start, basing conclusions on it. but I think if he's in cop mode and he's suspicious, that's all the more reason to be taking pictures. So that comment about I'm not taking pictures because I'm a cop and I'm suspicious of the guy seems strange. I mean, everybody's cell phone's got a camera, and that struck me as kind of an odd statement.
Yeah, no, I think it's nebulous. We need to get to the bottom of it. I had the guys rush in right at the end of the last hour and said, we've got a CBS clip. They were having a drill. And then once I watched the clip, I realized that it was a bit nebulous. But we need to investigate this, because if there was a drill, I mean, it's not like we're trying to blame the government out of the blue here. I mean, they admittedly cooked the bomb, trained the driver in '93 there. Well, we know they're covering up in New York what happened on 9/11. We know they covered up the fact that they blew up Building 7, and now they're admitting, well, we were looking at blowing it up, but we didn't because it just fell on its own for us at free fall speeds. Mike Rivero, stay there. Let's continue on a host of issues on the other side, including what's happening in Arizona. Okay, I know we've got Tim, Julio, Steve, Tim, Shannon, and others holding. The toll-free number to join us is 1-800-259-9231. Mike Rivero is our guest. Next hour, I'm going to personally spend quite a bit of time on the whole illegal alien situation. I believe we're a nation of immigrants. I believe we need more immigrants to the country legally. But when the government brings in these groups and then uses it to divide and conquer and gives them all this welfare and then makes them dependents of the state, I mean, I've looked at the voting numbers. I mean, many of the immigrant populations, almost 90%, tend to vote for bigger government, gun control. And so the government is basically using them as a political weapon. Now I look at the Arizona law. It's questionable whether it's constitutional. But then what does Arizona do when they're beginning to collapse in southern Arizona, just like Mexico is? Mexico is a failed state because of their phony drug war. 20-plus thousand deaths in the last 2 years alone. They're in a serious crisis. Mike Rivero, where do you see this going?
Well, I agree that, again, various politicians and political groups are trying to exploit the situation for their own immediate political gain. One of the issues that I have about this sudden flare-up of the Arizona law and the reaction to it, I mean, the Arizona law really is just a state implementation of existing federal law and a promise of more rigid enforcement, which the federal government has been sort of lax in doing. But I think one of the reasons they're trying to fan this up as an issue is as we head into this election season, this is the issue we're going to see more and more politicians campaigning on, rather than to allow any discussions about the economy or the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan and wherever else to come to the fore. And we've seen this in years past as an ongoing pattern where the politicians will decide we're going to run the campaigns on this issue over here because nobody dares talk about these really important things that are affecting everybody's lives over here. And so I think one of the reasons we're seeing such a furor whip up about this thing is, again, so to take the heat off of the economy and the wars. Now, one thing I did note is that over this last weekend when we had these pro-illegal immigration rallies, we've seen videotapes of the rioting that took place in Arizona when the law was passed. Over this last weekend, there was vandalism and damage up in Santa Cruz, for which the corporate media has basically turned a blind eye. If it had been the Tea Party in Santa Cruz breaking windows and damaging retail establishments, I think it would have been headline news across the country. I mean, let's face it, the immigration riots in Santa Cruz did more real physical damage than this bomb in Times Square, and yet the bomb in Times Square is getting the headline news.
That's right. I mean, to be specific, they had burning torches and set fire to a restaurant with people in it who had to escape. I mean, that is an act of attempted murder. And then the local ABC News channel interviewed two people who agreed with the rioters and said they have a reason to be upset. And so these illegal alien groups and their supporters feel like they're righteous. And so not only is the national media blacking this out, local media is egging it on like this was George Washington and the Tea Party. Meanwhile, they're claiming that Oath Keepers, myself, Ron Paul, many others, yourself in some of the documents, are basically terrorist enablers and that we want all this violence when we're doing the opposite. They've tried to keep Hispanics, blacks, and Asians from joining the Tea Parties by saying it's racial in the last year and a half when it never had anything to do with that. So we see this divide and conquer taking shape.
Well, my main concern, of course, is that following the riots that took place in Arizona, and we started seeing Obama talking about coming in and intervening and interfering with the Arizona law, my concern is that if there is any interference in the Arizona law after the rioting took place, the message that will be received is that rioting works. And people all across the country are going to be looking at what happened with, oh, they riot in Arizona, they get the immigration bill overturned by the federal government. They're going to say, well, let's riot for what we want. Taxes too high, let's have a riot. Don't like the wars, let's riot.
Let me stop you. Absolutely key. What did Obama do when he was a U.S. Senator with Odinga? We have the emails, they're public. He told his cousin, burn buildings, attack the Muslim minority, did not win the election, so they created a prime ministership along with the president for Odinga so he would stop burning down churches. And so exactly, the media is saying, you burn things down as our political army, and we'll protect you and not talk about it. But then we'll blame the Tea Parties and claim they're burning things down when it never happened.